afternoon. I'm Shelley Heller. I'm the Associate Provost here at the beautiful Ames Hall. The beautiful Ames Hall at the ever-beautiful Mount Vernon Campus. And I can't tell you how excited I am to welcome you all to the official opening of the Ames building. It's amazing. I'd like to welcome the students, the faculty, the staff, GW alumni, neighbors, members of the George Washington Board of Trustees, everybody in the audience, but a special, what do they say, a special shout out to the Mount Vernon College and Seminary alums, of which I know there are five. What they used to say, this one's for you. In 1947, not before my time, in 1947, Ames Hall began its life as a refectory. So here's your first quiz. Refectory means a place where one goes to be restored, hence a dining room. Not anymore. In 1955, the second floor was added to the front part of Ames to serve as a dormitory for 15 students, a house mother, you can see it was 1955, and an infirmary, I guess for the sickness that occurred from the dining hall. The building was named for Anne Seymour Ames. She was a graduate of the seminary in 1881. Remember, Mount Vernon College, Mount Vernon Seminary was founded in 1875 by Elizabeth Summers. So 1881, Anne Seymour graduated from the seminary, and she returned to the Mount Vernon campus as the first trained librarian in a private school in the entire United States. Elizabeth Summers was was one of the most forward-thinking educators, especially for women, in the United States. She served the campus and the university from 1898 to 1923. And it's fitting that we mention her today because she was very familiar with building spaces for universities. She had the unenviable job of chairing the construction of the chapel that was the Mount Vernon Seminary on Nebraska Avenue. And she did that in the early part of the last century. She relied on her originality, her undaunting courage, and her business acumen to bring that to fruition. Our updated Ames Hall then really reflects the merging of the legacy of Elizabeth Summers and the Mount Vernon College and Seminary with the 21st outlook of the George Washington University. So, what was key to Elizabeth Summers' pedagogical outlook, and how does today's Ames address those? So one, she felt very strongly that there should be spaces for faculty and students to interact. Well, check. Ames has outstanding nooks and crannies for such gatherings. She wanted the space to be conducive for fostering intellectual communities. Check. The BMVC, which stands for the beautiful Mount Vernon Campus, will soon house our freshman honors program, and Ames will provide seminar rooms needed for the small classes and discussion groups that characterize that program. She wanted opportunities for students to hear from a wide group of outstanding lecturers. Well, check. Ames houses our university writing program in beautiful new office space and has a fabulous large auditorium for presentations by visitors as well as our faculty. Nowhere else, absolutely, mark my words, nowhere else in this university is there a building like this, such as state-of-the-art teaching environments. Check. Ames has teaching spaces suited with open, airy, day-lit classrooms with the latest technology. Spaces for students to study alone and in small groups. Check. Ames has 6 glass-walled study rooms, 2 of which have flat screens so that the students can connect their laptops and talk to each other about a project. An environmentally friendly building. Check. Targeting LEED Gold building, Ames has a green roof, and my personal favorite, hence your memento from today's visit, water bottle filling stations along with the sustainable infrastructure. I want to tell you, just to keep you up to date, that the water bottle filling stations mark how much we have saved in sustainability. And as of last night, we have saved over 900 plastic water bottles by having our general water bottles filled. Good work. These measures together achieve a 40% reduction in water use and a 27% reduction in energy use over a typical commercial building. In addition to that, all that, what about our students? They want a place to grab a snack or coffee. Check. Our Zebby Cafe offers fresh soups and snacks for the students on the go. They want a place to watch the softball teams or the summer softball league. Check. These wonderful skyboxes offer prime seating. It's our own personal Camden Yards. And just so that you know that I'm being honest, here's what our students say when they tweet. The new Ames building looks fantastic, and I even got to catch up with my favorite Vern shuttle driver. That's a classic. Here's the next one. It looks a maze. I'm not exactly sure I get that, but it looks a maze. I'm super impressed, and yet another reason to love this place. So, having the renovated and expanded Ames on this campus celebrates our past while providing timely and much-needed space on the beautiful Mount Vernon campus as we look to the future. I'd like now, if you will, to allow me to invite to the podium the Mount Vernon BMVC's closest neighbor and supporter, the Provost, Steve Lerman.
Well, first of all, thank you, Shelley, and I think that wonderful history of how both the Mount Vernon campus came to be and what the aspirations are for this building. And of course, an enormous number of people worked very hard to make this happen. Shelley, who has now gotten all of us almost Pavlovianly committed to calling it the beautiful Mount Vernon campus. It almost sounds wrong if I just say Mount Vernon campus, and that's sort of a tribute to her commitment to this place. I thought I'd say a few words about jewels and tipping points. I hope it'll make sense when I finish. Sometimes it doesn't, by the way, so don't get upset. So about jewels. This is a wonderful gem of a place. When my wife and I were first recruited to come to George Washington University, of course, our first experiences, as many people are, were exposure to the mothership, the Foggy Bottom campus. And Steve Knapp, as I moved through the interview process, broached this idea that since he had recently relocated to be a presence on the Foggy Bottom campus, if under circumstances he would have asked me to be his provost and I were to accept that, would I be interested in living on the Mount Vernon campus? So I'm in the interview process, and I had gotten, at that point, really interested in getting the job. So at that point, of course, the obvious answer was, sure. And then, of course, the obvious. So this was like, this interview process went on for quite some time, involving multiple visits. So I said, that's really interesting that they have a Mount Vernon campus. So being from Boston, I took out a map, and where's Mount Vernon? And did I really agree to live that far from Foggy Bottom? And for those of you who know, we were living on the MIT campus where I worked, and so I was used to the 6-minute walk to my office. So, I really want the job, but do I really want to drive the GW Parkway all that way back and forth? God, what did I just say yes to? And how can I back out of that stupid commitment? Well, of course, the next visit, someone said, well, if you're going to live there, you ought to go look at it. So Lori had come with me on this visit. So I'm figuring, okay, we're going to get in the car. We're going to go about 40 minutes, and let's hope there's no traffic. And, of course, they take me up here, and I begin to find the jewel, the gem, which is this wonderful campus, which is unfortunately named incorrectly with respect to its location. So I say, oh, that's really nice, and this really is a short drive. And then what, he offered me to live in the house that had been, of course, the house of the president of Mount Vernon College and Seminary, and I accepted, and my wife and I have been living there now for over a year and a half. And we've come to love and appreciate all this campus has to offer. It is a little over 20 acres, if I have it correct. Just under 30. Well, that's a little over and a little. It is. It's a very different feel. It's the campus, in my view, that the parents of our students love in many ways, because it really looks exactly like if Hollywood needs a college campus to look like that place, this would be it. It has a wonderful tradition. Now, it's a small jewel in many senses. Of course, we've made a major investment in it, but I think, and now we get to the question of tipping points. Over the years, GW has invested substantial resources in renovating the facilities, bringing them up to code, improving roofs, and people who were alumni of will remind me, those of you who were here in the last few years, the times I've met you, remind me of roofs that didn't leak were the exception towards the end of the life as an independent college. But things happen in places not linearly. And as we improved the quality of facilities, and we added two huge anchors. We added West Hall, which anchors the residential part of the campus and is part of the almost 680, 690 beds we have here. And now this, Ames Hall. And I think the reason it's a tipping point is we have now built the critical mass of students, faculty, and facilities that I think will now elevate the already substantial contributions this campus makes to the overall GW University. And we now have that density and level of activity here that will propel this part of the university into being an ever more critical component. We are seeing more and more upperclassmen who want to live here. We're seeing faculty who come here and say, A, they never knew this was here, and B, how can they do things here? So we're seeing this huge tipping point, and I think the opening of Ames Hall really completes out the critical mass of facilities, and I envision an ever-increasing level of intellectual energy that will now come here with the students and faculty interacting, and much of that will happen right here in Ames Hall, in the spaces that we're wandering around, where our faculty now have new offices, where new programs get created, where our students come to study, to talk, to interact, to eat, to learn. It is just tremendously exciting for this campus and, of course, for the whole university. It's my honor and privilege to be part of this community. My wife and I love being here. We've had many of the students who live here, and those who don't live here, in fact, at our house for various events. We'll continue to do so, and we look forward to participating in activities here in Ames Hall. So with that, thank you very much for inviting me, and I know we have other speakers in the program. I'll turn the podium back over to Shelley, and once again, congratulate all of you who've labored so hard to make this campus happen, to make this facility happen, and to really contribute to the vitality of the beautiful Mount Vernon campus. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Come back anytime. Come back every day. It's a great pleasure to have Provost Lerman here, to have all of you here. And I'm specifically excited to have the next two speakers take the time out of their busy schedules to talk to you about the building itself. Our first speaker is Cynthia Steele-Vance. Cynthia has an enormously impressive resume. She's hosts My Generation, a talk show about health, money, relationships, entertainment, and volunteering. She's been an anchor for Fox News, a correspondent on Larry King Live, a reporter, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll introduce Cynthia, and then she'll introduce our second speaker. That'll be great.
But most importantly, I am a graduate of Mount Vernon College, and a GW trustee, and proud to be so. I recently had coffee with Elizabeth Raymond, who is Mount Vernon's new Director of Development. And she said, Cynthia, you know, we're opening up Ames Hall. Have you seen it yet? And I said, no, I'm hearing great things about it, though. And she said, well, would you mind coming and speaking and talking about your time living at Ames Hall? And I said, well, I'd love to, but I didn't live at Ames Hall. I'm so old, I lived in the new dorm, which was now Pelham Hall, and then is now West Hall. But I said, I'd be happy to come. So I get home, I get an email from Shelley, and Shelley says, oh, wow, I'm so glad that you're going to come and speak about your time living in Ames Hall and share your memories. So I emailed Shelley, I said, Shelley, I didn't live in Ames Hall, but I'm happy to come speak. What I didn't want to tell them, because I didn't want to be rude, is I never wanted to live in Ames Hall. No one wanted to live in Ames Hall. Ames Hall was dark, it was dreary, it was a little spooky. In fact, my friend Sissy Baker, we went to school together, I said something to Sissy. I said, do you remember anything about Ames Hall? She goes, oh, God, no, it was a prison. Nobody wanted to live in Ames Hall. I said, okay, well, but we do remember a few things about Ames Hall. There was a cafeteria here, which is no more. It was run by a very formidable woman named Betty Lou. And if Betty Lou didn't like you, you did not get seconds. She was quite a character. But those days are a distant memory. We now have this glorious building, and the new Mount Vernon has come full circle. When we first became part of GW, Sissy Baker, who was very involved in that process, said her hope then was one day that Mount Vernon would be the campus for the honors program. Well, some 13, 14 years later, it has happened. For those of us that loved and still love Mount Vernon, it's a real point of pride that our campus is now the home of the honors program and the university writing program. I recently came across a pin, which I stuck in my purse and failed to bring up with me, but I'll show you later. It's a little pin, and it says, press on regardless. I came across it recently. It's been sitting on my bulletin board, and as I was thinking about my remarks this morning, I thought, press on regardless. Well, as Mount Vernon was getting ready to close its doors because we had run out of money, we had no endowment, we were all here making phone calls, trying to keep the campus open, somebody made these pins, press on regardless. Well, we're good Mount Vernon girls. We know about pressing on regardless, so we pressed on regardless. We cut a deal with Georgetown University. Sissy Baker was at a cocktail party and overheard the Jesuits, I mean no disrespect to the Jesuits, but overheard them talking about how they couldn't wait to get a hold of that Mount Vernon campus and raise it and turn it into condos. So Sissy Baker raced back to the campus. Our president at the time contacted GW. We cut a deal with GW. Immediately, we scuttled the other deal. We cut a deal. We made a gamble. GW went through, and it's a gamble that has paid off. So Mount Vernon is now poised for a second chapter. And I speak for myself and all of my fellow alums. We are happy to be part of it. And we are pleased that GW loves this campus as much as we did and has given it a new life and a new chapter. So thank you very much.
What a perfect segue, the new chapter. Alyssa Abraham is currently a senior in the Elliott School of International Affairs. She's one of the very few GW students who have lived most, if not all, of her semesters right here at the BMVC. Alyssa not only is a student, going to graduate soon, she is also a 2009-2010 member of the Women's Leadership Program, which is a direct legacy of Elizabeth Summers and her educational philosophy. And as an upperclassman, she's a house proctor. And now she's planning her life after graduation and hopes to continue as a graduate student here. Who would be better to represent the future than Alyssa?
Good afternoon. Thank you all again for having me come and share a few reflections on Ames Hall. As Dean Heller said, I have lived on this campus for my entire undergraduate career. And because of this, I've been able to watch this campus expand and develop right in front of my own eyes. Some of my fondest memories, which made me first love this campus, took place in Ames Hall. My first night at GW as a freshman, I had moved in before my roommates and my parents had driven away, and it was my first night here. I was anxious at the thought of being alone for the first time away at college. That night, though, I received a knock at my door from several other students and my house proctor. They told me that students were gathering to play games in Ames Pub. I was hesitant, but I accompanied them, and I ended up spending hours talking into the wee hours of the night and getting to know other students. Essentially, I spent my first night as a college student in Ames Hall. It created a connection for me to the university and the Mount Vernon community right from the beginning. That is what the old Ames building was all about. It was an environment that brought others together through food, entertainment, activities. Some of my closest friends at GW today are the individuals who I shared Sunday brunches with in the Ames dining room. The space was versatile and welcoming. The dining room and pub provided a central location where you could hang out with friends or spend hours casually studying. Even while I was in the women's leadership program, my freshman year, we even transformed part of Ames to become an art gallery to display different artistic creations. What is wonderful about the new renovated Ames building is that it's going to retain these wonderful qualities of being versatile and being a space where students can gather and engage with one another. But now, it is not only a space building community among Mount Vernon students, it is also connecting students more holistically to their academics and to the faculty and to the different resources GW has to offer both on Foggy Bottom and the Mount Vernon campus. Adding classroom space and the university writing program to Ames Hall in an environment that encourages dialogue will expand students' learning experiences beyond the classroom. In fact, one of the most important experiences for me here at GW has been the relationships I've built with professors who often taught in the more intimate classes at Mount Vernon, and which now Ames Hall provides. I took my university writing class on the Vern, and I benefited from my university writing professor, Julie Donovan, who tirelessly worked with me to refine and improve my writing skills inside class and outside of class. Similarly, my professor, Mary Buckley, taught me about art and culture and has been a mentor for me. It has been through the relationships with those professors that I am who I am today. And it's exciting for me to see how Ames Hall will be utilized as a place where students can forge these types of relationships with their professors, maybe even a few guest speakers, and with also administrators, such as the provost, who they may run into eating at Zebby's. I'm thrilled to have been here to witness the changes at Ames Hall, and I look forward to seeing how the Mount Vernon campus continues to grow to create a premier living and learning environment for students in a way that impacts students such as myself and future generations. Thank you.
GW educates them really well. It's not going to come as a surprise to you, but a building as wonderful as this doesn't just appear on a campus without strong advocacy. So I'd like to ask Alicia Knight, Senior Associate Vice President for Operations, to recognize some of those dedicated folks who made the renovation and extension of this building possible. Alicia.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. There's a large crowd. I couldn't be happier to be here today at the opening of Ames Hall. As many of you know, I lead GW's Division of Operations, which is responsible for, among other things, the design, construction, and operation of our campus buildings. We're here to celebrate the opening of our building today, but it had a long life before we got to this place, as Shelley alluded to. As you might imagine, the amount of work that goes into getting to today is immense, and there are a lot of people who need to be recognized for that. I'm going to go through and recognize a number of them. I've tried to be exhaustive, but if I haven't been, please excuse me. And I ask that you hold your applause until the end. I promise you will get very tired if we applaud for each person individually. To start, before we start building a building, we have a user who has a vision, sets a vision for what a building will be. And in this case, credit goes to Shelley Heller and Jeff Len for creating a vision for the beautiful building we stand in today. With this vision established, we proceed to work with the team of architects to turn that vision into a design concept. Quinn Evans Architect, who designed this beautiful building, is here today, and I'd like to acknowledge Allison Steele, Carl Elefante, James Thompson, and Larry Barr for their work on this project. So now with a vision and a design concept in hand, project goes through a series of regulatory approvals, and it's our campus planning, community relations, and zoning teams, legal teams that get us through that process. And from those teams, I'd like to acknowledge Susie Cora, Eric Selbst, Brittany Waddell, Charles Barber, and then we have Maureen Dwyer and Dave Avidable, I think way back there from Goulston and Stores. I can see them right over some heads. So we moved to build the building and hope that what we build meets the vision and exceeds the expectations. And it's our team from construction project management and development management that takes on that huge task. And from those teams, I'd like to acknowledge Art Bean, Adam Aronson, Mick Burns, Chad Harmon, Linnea Kessler-Gowell, and Peter Chu. But of course, they can't do it alone. There are people throughout the university that help shape a building. We have our friends at the GW Police Department and Division of Information Technologies that help us design buildings that are safe, secure, and well-wired for all of our iPads, iPods, and all of our other eyes that we have. We have our team from Facilities Services who make sure we can operate what we build. Jim Schroet, Alex Weller, Harold Speed, Margie O'Leary. We have our sustainabilities and facilities planning groups that make sure that we build the most sustainable and efficient buildings that we can. As Shelley mentioned, this one is targeting LEED Gold, which is a fantastic trend for the university. Acknowledging Megan Chappell-Brown, Nancy Giammatteo, and Doug Spengel for their efforts. From academic technologies, we have the people who design and operate the fantastic systems that are in our classrooms and the student engagement with the boards and plugging in and all of that, P.P. Garrett and her team there. And from Campus Support Services, who provided the concept for Zebe Eatery, who I think we're tasting a little bit later, Nancy Haga, Anya Hughes, and our team and partners at Sodexo. Now, of course, these people don't actually build the building. We have to look to our friends at Donahoe Construction who did that for us on this project. And I'd like to recognize Vice President Bob Wilson from Donahoe and his team, including Neil Frumkin and Robert Egan. Finally, I'd like to thank the students who have supported this project from conception to where we are today. Students from Campaign GW I saw on my way in. I see student leaders in the building. I see the students that make up the Mount Vernon campus. And this building would be bricks and mortar if not for the vibrancy and the life that our students add to our campus. So I thank all of you. And finally, a thank you to the university leadership, President Knapp, Provost Lerman, Senior Vice Provost Chermak, and of course my boss, Lou Katz, who have provided the support and guidance for us all in getting to today. So I will pause and let's give everyone a big round of applause, please. So with that, I thank you all for being here today, and I really do hope that this building lives up to the vision and the expectations that all of you developed during the process. Thank you very much.
Just before we close, I'd like to give you a little inside scoop that in building this building, we had a very joyous every Tuesday afternoon at 1:30 meeting about this building with stakeholders. Some of them more stake and some of them more holders. But there are a few people that I really should recognize because they participated in this stakeholding regularly with great advice and support and sometimes good humor. Colette Coleman, Director of Events and Director of Marketing and Special Events at the BMVC. Daryl Johnson, Captain of the BMVC Police. Andrew Browser, Operations Supervisor for Athletics, who put up a lot with having to move equipment out of the way of the softball field. And Tony Dillard, former Property Manager. Thanks to everybody for coming. This was fabulous. I'm delighted to see so many people. We have a repast for you. We have Leah Cozy, who is a women's leadership student from last year, playing on the cello. Please, we have students from GW Campaign to give you tours of the building. Don't miss it. It's a great building. There is a signpost. And in the tradition of this building, I'd like you to take the time to sign the placard. here's something we did in this building that I hear nobody else has done yet, but it's coming. During the summer, we had a topping off party where when you get to the roof, they have a great celebration. And when we had this great celebration, there weren't any floors, there were beams all over the place, it was kind of weird, and the posts were naked. And we had the opportunity to sign them. And I was walking with the building, through the building one day with Chad Harmon, and I said, are you going to cover it up? It's so darn cool, as the students would say, way cool. And he said, well, we'll see what we can do. So in our tradition, the signpost is not completely covered, and there's a little window, and you can see everybody who came that, or most of the people who came that day and signed their name. And in that tradition, we've put up a placard in the entryway right now. So if you came to visit today, please sign it, we'll frame it, and we'll hang it in a place of honor. So thanks again, and in the Southern style, y'all come back now.